Sigrid and I grew up in Transylvania. Yes, it's that Transylvania. It's the end of the world. If you take one more step, you'll just fall off the face of the world. And we were never allowed to go outside as the kids because the bats and the vampires were flying around us. Just like the Dementors trying to suck life's energy out of us. And around midnight, you could hear the werewolves howling like, ooh. No, but one thing that was real in Transylvania is that we were not able to travel. We were behind the Iron Curtain, influence of the Russian Soviet Union, and we were pretty much locked in. So that was a bummer. So I remember as a kid, once in a while we got a package with food because we didn't really have a lot of food. And sometimes we got a gift, and that was in bubble wrap. And I took the bubble wrap and popped the bubble so I could smell freedom, because that bubble, air in the bubble wrap came from Germany, and Germany was free. So, a few years further, the whole Iron Curtain, the whole walls came down, and we were able to travel. Yay! So 89, end of 89, 90, first time I got a chance, get the passport, go to Austria. And here I was, a 20-year-old in Austria, and I felt I was right in Vienna, big capital, million citizens, and so on. And we had some connections, some friends there, so I could stay with them. But I felt so lost. Everything was so strange. Well, come Sunday morning, good habit, talking about good habits that don't change. Looking for a church. Now, Lutheran Protestant, looking for a Protestant church. Well, good luck finding a Protestant church in Vienna. Everything is Catholic. Well, when in need, you make do and go, well, to a Catholic church. They must not be that bad. But then I was walking in. No one was there yet, so I was way early roaming around. And then the priest came to me, and he saw me kind of roaming around, and he came to me and just introduced himself and asked me, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Well, and I told him I'm really a stranger. And then he did something I'll never forget again. He invited me to read the gospel reading during that Mass. I was just, wow, a stranger from Transylvania where werewolves howl. And the bloodsuckers are all over. He invited me to read this gospel reading. Hospitality. How do we invite people? How do we see them? How do we welcome them? What is the potential, the gift that we see in them and what they can bring to us? It can be just as very simple. I remember Gail Fisher and Jeanette Dressler. One of them had just moved in the neighborhood, and I think they were like in 3rd grade, little girls. And it happened then one of them was playing outside and the other one across the street. And they came, one of them crossed the street and got to the other one and said, "May I be your friend?" 70 years ago. Best friends ever since. How did it start? With the invitation, "May I be your friend?" That is what the Bible stands for. That's the key and the heart of it. Welcome the stranger because in the stranger holds a blessing for you that you are not aware of. The stranger actually, in the New Testament, brings Jesus to you. Now, looking at the Bible, just a few passages that talk about strangers, welcoming them, and what the result is. In the Old Testament, actually not just the whole Old Testament, in the Torah, the first books of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scripture, it says 36 times, love the stranger. It says 1 time, love your neighbor. Why the heck is that? Well, because it's so easy to love family and friends, and it's so easy. We don't need so much reminder of love your neighbor as yourself, but we need a reminder, quite a few reminders, love the stranger, welcome the stranger. And in the Torah, 36 times. Now, there is a significance to the 36. You know what the Jews, when Jewish people say when they cheer, when they knock glasses together, like some say, we say cheer or salute people, what do they say? They say l'chaim, and that means life, to life. Chaim is life in Hebrew. And the numerical value of the word chaim, of life, is 18. And if you double that, you end up to 36. The number, the amount of times love the foreigner appears in the Torah. So, you will have life abundantly, double of life, if you really practice that. That's the deeper understanding and the meaning in it. So, why should we do that? Well, because strangers hold a blessing, and our Hebrew scripture reminds us, the Hebrews scripture reminds us that and it alludes to Abram and Sarah when 3 strangers came to them. They had their tent up in Mamre and were tenting there, and they were desperate. They always got this promise from God, you will have heirs, you will have descendants, I will bless you beyond measure, but nothing was visible that they actually were conceiving and having a baby. No. It was all dry, no promise, real tangible. And then came these 3 strangers. And what the scripture says, what Abram did is, he bowed down before them all the way to the ground. And that's the symbol, the way how you greeted people. You bow down before them. And then these strangers became angels who blessed them and who promised that Sarah would become pregnant, and she did. So in the stranger, a blessing came. The strangers became angels, messengers of the living God. That's why we do it. So there is something in people with whom we're not quite as familiar. And when I say stranger, it doesn't need to be the foreigner or whoever. Stranger can be just the person next to you whom you do not know, whom you can still acquaint a little bit, get a little bit closer to, and befriend. Now, I appreciate you, Shane, sharing last week in our meeting Desmond Tutu quote. My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. It takes your humanity to be connected with another's humanity, for we're all intricately woven together. We need each other. Not just friends need friends. We need each other to make humanity and make it a loving community, or the whole Ubuntu philosophy circles around that. So, example from the New Testament, Do you remember the story, the disciples walking to Emmaus? Jesus was crucified. They were terrified, locked into their room, thought, we will be next, hanging or being crucified. So two of them walk from Jerusalem to Emmaus. One is named Cleopas, the other one is not named. And the story goes, the one who was not named was a woman. Or put your name in there, that you are walking. Our journey of life is walking and not knowing whether Jesus is with us. Well, what happens is, the scriptures say, a stranger came and started to walk with them. So they started conversation, and Jesus asked them questions, and in the conversation, their hearts were burning. They opened up. They felt this, wow, we have never seen it like that. And Jesus, as stranger, opens the scriptures to them, and they see and experience and feel like, wow, we have never seen it that way. Wow, there is this message, it's this blessing right there. And then, when they come close to Emmaus, it's getting a little bit darker. The disciples know where they're going. And Jesus does as if he will continue to walk. And they say to Jesus, why don't you come and stay with us? Don't you see it's getting dark? Just come in. So they invite the stranger. And over having dinner, having supper, sitting around the table, Jesus takes the bread, gives thanks, and then they recognize Jesus. So seeing and recognizing Jesus in the stranger happens when you invite the stranger, when you share a meal with someone, when you're open to see with the eyes of God. Now, the stranger may not be a stranger outside of you. The stranger can be an inner person in you, the part in you that you're not so familiar with. A good friend told me she had this dream, a nightmare. A black jaguar was chasing her over and over, and the nightmare repeated, and she woke up. She didn't know what to do with it. Until this insight came, well, what if I, instead of running from the jaguar, turn to it and ask, what do you want to tell me? And when she did that, she saw the jaguar, and the jaguar had this bright eyes shining just like pebbles, like lights in the eyes. And it was this encounter where the jaguar actually was a gift, became a friend to support and walk and give her the jaguar energy. So rather than running from the strange, scary piece, where and how can I turn to the strange or scary part in me? Now, the stranger welcome and the stranger is not just in our culture. You remember the namaste? What is it about? The God in me greets the God in you. In every one of us, there is a God part, the Spirit of God in us. And to recognize, to look deeper. When Samuel went out to find the next king, Saul was done. He looked for David. He looked at all the people. Which one should be king? And he thought, this one is the guy, or that one is the guy, that one is the guy. And he heard God's voice and said, don't look at the outward appearance, look at the heart. Don't stick to the cover, how people look like. Look deeper at the heart. I think that's also the wisdom of the little prince. It is only with the heart that one sees rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eyes. Hospitality, welcome, It can be as simple, may I be your friend? It may be an invitation to, can we have a meal together? Can I take you out for lunch? As simple it can start. It can start that simple. I still remember, like yesterday, I was in Vienna, lost, and that priest asked me to read the gospel reading. Whom will you invite? To whom will you become a friend? Whom will you welcome as Jesus, as the person who holds a blessing for you? Who will that person be?